Welcome to this episode of Lie of the Land, where I'll find musicians, poets and artists and we'll take a wander through the Shetland landscapes that have inspired their work. We start with poet Roseanne Watt. It was September last year when I went to Unst to meet her, 7 months into the COVID pandemic. She'd just come home for a long lockdown in Edinburgh and wanted to take me to a place that, to her, spoke of hope in a time of suffering.
The name Helierbrunn means the healing well in Norn, and it's a place that, according to legend, there was a priest in ancient times, a Celtic priest, who came to Unst to preach the gospel, and he was not met kindly by the folk. They murdered him. And just where his body fell, before he knew he was going to die, so he sent up a prayer to ask his death be meaningful to the people in some way. And so where his body fell, the spring water of Helierbrunn emerged. It's said that in order to receive the kind of medicine of the water, you have to bring an offering of 3 stones or 3 coins and put it in near the water, and then you can receive the healing properties of it. But if you're taking the water for somebody else, you need to bring it in a container which should never touch the ground, and the journey has to be made between the hours of sunset and sunrise. So it's a long, dark journey with this water that you're bringing to somebody else. And here it is.
So it kind of looks like we're coming up to a lot of stones that are all kind of crumbled and fall down on the ground, and it's kind of boggy.
Mm-hmm. These stones have all been brought over time to the burn, to the spring itself, and left here as offerings. So all of these stones are the result of people coming to seek healing for the water. You can see coins have been left, and that's again folk knowing the legend and coming to get the medicine of the water. Apparently, there's been like old Danish coins found, but the ones that we're seeing are just very modern.
You mean like really old Danish coins?
Yeah, like really old ones.
So the legend of the Helierbrunn has gone far.
Yes, I would think so. Here we have 3 stones each, so we can make our offering to the god.
They're very nice stones. They're like pretty quartz pebbles,
yes,
all smoothed.
And we tend them for the Burford Beach.
What do you think is the significance of 3? That number crops up a lot in these kind of things.
I'm not too sure. Presumably 3, because the story is so embedded in a kind of Christian narrative. I would imagine the significance of 3 is relating to the Trinity. But there's also, it's such an old story that's maybe been Christianised over time.
Yeah, the 3 crops up kind of pagan and pre-Christian stuff as well.
Yeah, exactly, with the 3-horned god and things like that. And the triple goddess. I'm going to put that in so that you can get a nice splash.
Okay, and I'll put mine in here.
I'm not too sure if I want to drink the water at the moment.
Yeah, it's a pretty bit algae and stuff in it. Maybe.
I think I'll just dip my hands in it, but I want to drink it this time. I wanted to bring you to Helierbrunn because I feel like I've been thinking about it a lot during lockdown. I've been locked down in Edinburgh for a long time, and I'd been thinking about Helierbrunn a lot during that time because I had meant to go to it when I had been up in January, and we just didn't manage to, because you kind of know why it is, and at New Year you just end up going all over the place. Mm-hmm. And it just, because it's a healing place in the landscape, it was just on my mind all the time because of this pandemic and the story of Helierbrunn. It's a strangely hopeful story because it's an act of such terrible violence turned into something good. That idea of having to carry the weight of the water through the night in order to heal somebody else. It feels a lot like the heavy weight of hope in many ways that we're carrying during this time. So I felt I needed to go back. As soon as I got here, I was like, we're going to Helgebrunn. We need to make an offering and hopefully, obviously not heal, but it felt appropriate to be going here at this particular moment in time.
Do you think maybe other people have been coming here with the same intention?
I don't know. I don't know how many folk ken about the legend itself. Me and my partner read about it in Jessie Saxby's book, I think. We knew that it was in Unst. We knew that its name, but we didn't know where it was. And then we were just looking on a map and found it under the name Jellebrunn. It's got several different names because it was always just an oral name. It was never really written down. So there's several different ways of spelling it. And so when we found it on the map, then we decided to go and visit it. And it was amazing to have that, the way of the story, something you read on the page, and then to find it real in the landscape. It made it like a living thing and made it real. There's no signage or anything. It's kind of something you just stumble across, and if you don't know the story, it's kind of a weird looking thing to see.
Can you maybe just describe what we can see here?
There's the main road just coming up for the ferry, and then there's the Braes of Hintus in the open landscape surrounded by vodhuses, the pit hill, and can I see what birds that is? Dukes. The main thing that you see on that road is the statue of the White Wife, and then you come into the field. You wouldn't even really know to head in this direction. It just looks like a pile of stones for the road. You come in around it, you find where the spring is coming out, and you see all the different coins just nestled in amongst all these stones.
I like the idea that each coin I can see here is like somebody's intention, somebody's not request, I suppose.
It's somebody who knows the story, and that's like, and they've left there, it's like a relic almost of their request to the landscape.
Or like their hope.
Yes, exactly. The water coming to take on that. There's a line by Kathleen Jamie in The Wishing Tree, I think, and she speaks about the tree is filled with coins, and each coin is a wish. And she speaks about the tree is speaking, and it says, though I am choked on the small change of human hope. And I think that's such a beautiful way to look at these kind of ceremonies almost in the landscape. And that's something that we don't really have that much anymore, is that idea of ceremony in relationship with the land itself. There's a lot of ceremonies that we have that are like celebration of relations between humans, like birthdays, graduations, all that. It's lovely to have one that is about a relationship with the land itself, a kind of reciprocity.
Like a place that is kind of sacred.
Exactly, yeah. And it's something that I really feel in my life, is that kind of feeling of reverence. It's lovely to connect with that sense of reverence here, especially during times like these. Coming from the city and having felt so disconnected and isolated within a small tenement flat, I guess that's why Helgebrunn was on my mind so much. Not only did it that promise of healing, not even necessarily a promise of it, just the fact of it as like an offering was such a nice thing to have in your mind when you're just locked down somewhere that doesn't feel like home.
It made me think, when you're saying that especially at a time when the ceremonies that we would have together, we can't because of COVID, and all the kind of human relationships and the solace that we find in those kind of hugging and touching and then having celebrations and parties. So maybe there's a lot of kind of solace we can find in places like this.
Absolutely.
I've left my 3 pretty pebbles for offerings. I can see an old 10p there.
Yeah, you can see nestled in tuppence. He's gotten kind of oxidised and going green. Let's see if we can find a date on him. A very young Queen Elizabeth. Here we go, 1971.
I wonder the person who put that there and when they did it and what they were hoping that they might find some healing with. strange rocks, aren't they?
They are. There's some that have come from here, the big boulders. And then when you look closer, you can see things that are like pebbles that must have come from a beach because they're rounded, been in the sea. It's very black in here, like it's soft and it's absolutely been taken from a beach and put here. So it's not just the coins, it's the stones as well. And that's another thing I kind of like about the story, is it's like even the stones represent something. It's not just about money, it's about the land itself. That's enough, as long as your intent is there. It can be silver or it can be stone, and that's...
It's all just offerings.
Yes, exactly. It's not so much about the physical object itself, but the what it represents. To those of you not yet here, I am writing to you because I hope to find you well. I've been thinking about you a lot lately, in the same way I've been thinking about that word, well, and how every message I write these days begins with this earnest spell. There's something good in it, I think, the way we're saying things we really mean, or at least I seem to believe more in the sincerity of spoken things. But I've always been a sucker for that sweet rot of hope. I carry it in my mouth like toothache or a secret worth keeping. You know this better than anyone, of course. The amount of pins I've stuck in you is much the same experience. Really, I'm writing to you because the other day I wrote this by mistake. I hope you're keeping wells, and it made me think of that other side of meaning. The one with palms cupping water, with stones and coins inside its walls. And I remembered the time I went to visit one just like that, up north, whose name means healing well in our island's dead language. I'd read about it in this folk book, dared myself to believe in it enough to go looking. The story says an old god went to die there, and if you want the water's medicine, well, you better be willing to carry it. What I want to tell you is I found it, and it did not cure me as I hoped it would. It was that last part I'd not truly understood, how I am too the keeper of the well, and this is why I'm writing to you, just to say I hope, wherever you are, this finds you. Maybe I should have drank from it. Do you think that would have been better?
Not if it made you ill. Even if you didn't drink for the spring, you did something with the water recently that you're waiting to see how that turns out. What was it?
So we came to Hellybrunn a couple of weeks ago and took some water to try and brew some beer with, get some home brew on the go. We're all joking about how it should preempt the hangover and heal you before you get ill, but we put some meadowsweet in it, which we've had grown down by the burn. It's all a bit of an experiment. We don't know if it's going to taste good or if it's going to be the bitterest thing you've ever had. I'm quite excited because the water does just taste beautiful. It's so cold and so clear, like just the added story of it having these healing properties. I don't know, I think that makes it taste even better.
I can see the fog coming in. It's kind of dramatic here, like a dale running through there, the purple heather. But it's just starting to get a pretty bit wheat with the mist.
When we came here, you could see the top of the hill, and now it's been completely softened, and there's a real veil coming in, slowly making the world small.
And there's the kind of haunting figure of the White Wife there.
Yes, will we go have a look at the White Wife? It's sculpture by Eric Burgess-Ray. So this road is where lots of folk have encountered the White Wife, who only ever appears to single men. And the story written here is that she allegedly had an argument with her husband. The reason for that is lost in time. She then drowned herself in the Loch of Watley, which is just in the near distance here, but you can't really see it now because of the fog coming in. There are many accounts of her standing on the side of this road behind you, possibly looking for the son she left behind. Whenever a red car with a lone male driver comes along, she will appear in the seat next to the driver should it take her fancy. Maybe she thinks that the driver is her son. However, once the car moves away from this loch area, she is no longer in the car. Other accounts suggest that she was a young woman making her way to Uisund to visit her lover. She was set upon by thieves at the brig and is forever trying to complete her journey south. And this statue is done in her memory.
It is quite an amazing statue.
Yeah. I heard though that she lost her head at one point. I'm not sure how that possibly happened.
Yeah.
Some mischief, I think.
That she has a kind of mischievous pretty face.
Yeah. It amuses me that she appears to lone men. I think that says something about her character, the powerful Shetland wife. There's another story with the Loch of Cliff. I believe that's where the Wolver stone is. The Wolver is a werewolf native to Unst. Unlike its more famous cousin, it's a very nice werewolf. He just likes to fish on his rock, and when he's done with his fishing, then he goes and leaves the fish on the windowsill of old bodies who are needing to be fed. So he's a kind one. he's not a mean werewolf.
It's getting kind of
wheaty way.
Yeah. Right, jump in the car.
It was maybe the first week into lockdown, and there was a news segment about the Nightingale hospitals being built. They had just opened. Then immediately after that, there was another story about that mentioned the word nightingale, but it was actually about the bird, and it kind of just made me feel amazed that that's like language was like even disrupted. Words were changing meaning during this weird time that we were all living through. So this is a poem which is kind of about those dual meanings of the word nightingale at that time, and also about how everybody was having weird dreams. I'm not sure if you had that. I just had such vivid dreams for the first couple of weeks of lockdown. So this is Nightingales. Did you hear the news this morning? I mean the segment about the nightingales, about their wings. Not the hospitals, though they were there, in the breath before the nightingales. I'm talking about the birds. They say their wings are getting too short for the distances of their flight. They call it maladaptation. It means when a species' response to change ends up causing harm. It means bad fit, sounds close to malady. I was listening to this as the bell of a dream softened in my head. That's another thing, isn't it? They say people are dreaming again, mainly about weird weather, tsunamis, lava. A friend told me she dreamt of hailstones tapping at her window, but when she looked she saw it was some people throwing teeth at the glass. Still, I don't remember mine. I woke and it was just a song down the corridor of waking. Then news of the nightingales, whose wings are shortened because the pressure of drought means fewer eggs, because the timing of spring has shifted, and all this comes at cost of wingspan. I am talking about the birds in the beds, and if I dreamt of anything at all, I imagine it was not of weather, but thorns, furling down into my lungs, into that blue hallway where the heart is kept. And if there was indeed a song, I think it likely came from there and travelled huge distances before morning.
You actually grew up in Sandwick, but what does this place mean to you?
Unst, I adore Unst. The reason I'm here is that I'm staying with my partner who is from Unst. I think the thing I love about Unst is that it's where the stories seem to comfy. A lot of the folklore really does come from this place, and we went on a hike recently, and the geology of Unst is really fascinating. It's so different. When you see the map, the geological map of Unst, it's just like a rainbow of different geologies just running through it like veins. It was amazing to go on this hike and notice that the way the land shifts. There's giants in stories from Unst. I don't think there are that many elsewhere in Shetland, and it just struck me, like, when we came into this dal, that huge banks just felt like, yeah, you can believe that giants roamed here. It was such an appropriate landscape for those kind of stories to emerge from. That's why I love Unst, is because you can see the way the land holds its stories like that. It's just really beautiful.
As a poet, how do you find the landscape affects your work or inspires your work?
It's honestly everything. It's just one of those questions I get asked a lot, and I never have a good answer. It's something ineffable that I can't quite reach, and I'm trying to reach it through poetry, I think. That feeling of connection to the land is it's so what makes me write. It propels me to write, put things down on the page. I don't know why it is like that. It's something about getting back to something I felt when I was young, growing up in Shetland, and feeling there was an animacy to the land. You lose that sense when you grow up, I think. But poetry kind of returns me to that. I especially find with the dialect, using the dialect words and being connected to the Shetland language helps me return to that sense, because these words come from the land. They're the best words to describe this place. So returning to the dialect has helped me get back that connection as well, I think.
When you say about being a bairn, like that kind of sense of wonder.
Yes, absolutely, and awe and wonder. It's so difficult to explain without, like, I don't want to romanticise Shetland, but it's a feeling. I think it's something about return. I'm not sure, but I'm reaching for something, I think.
We're sitting here looking at the fog coming in, and it's getting dreich and damp and cold, and we're looking at what to other folk might seem like a big barren bit of hill, but I think to you and me this is kind of perfect.
Yes, like I was saying to you earlier about how I quite like going out in bad weather. I think it's more interesting than the sunshine a lot of the time. Like, I love the fog, I love the rain, I love its veils and mysteries. I think that's a much more interesting place for way I see the landscape in this kind of light and this kind of, yeah.
It's almost like this is the kind of, like the natural setting for Shetland, like when it's...
And I don't think many folk would agree. I think that it's, but I am a big believer that, like, and I used to hate bad weather. I used to hate the having to go out in it. Now I just love it, and I realised it's because it's true. There is no such thing as bad weather. There's just the wrong clothes for it. Because when you get a good jacket, it changes your life.
That is true. Yeah. Or a good boiler suit.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
Windproof material, that's what you need.
I'm kind of looking forward to winter as well.
Oh, yeah. I love the winter time. I think there's something even more potent about the stories that come for the winter as well. Like the traditions that are clearly there to stave off the darkness, and they create such warmth and such intrigue, and I love it.
The next part of this episode was recorded very recently, in early January's cold snap, as you can hear for the ice crunching under our feet. Margaret Robertson, a central figure in Shetland's music scene both as composer and tutor, had wanted to take me to Yell, where she grew up, but COVID restrictions meant a socially distanced chat at the Slets instead, a place that also holds a lot of meaning for Margaret.
There's this Chimicol steps, just at Slits. A lovely spot in the town. Tranquil, very peaceful.
So, why have you brought me here?
Well, I suppose I was born and brought up in Shetland, and it's a sea-locked community. And I think it's maybe one of the things you don't necessarily appreciate about Shetland is the fact that the sea has been very much its lifeblood as you're growing up. I think you need to maybe reach another stage in your life before you realise that the sea is here for lots and lots of reasons as far as a Shetlander is concerned. But now for me it's one of the things that takes me away but brings me back home again. So it's a link to where I now live on the Scottish mainland.
You came up a few weeks ago, is that right?
Yes, I was actually fortunate enough to get to Shetland just before the restrictions happened at Christmas time. I was actually on the ferry by the time the announcements were made, so I was already on my way, and I'm still here, which is a kind of lovely extended stay in Shetland. I mean, we're still under restrictions obviously, but contrary to last lockdown where I was locked down at home on my own, well, 2 friendly spiders, but just me. But this time my 2 friendly spiders is Ross, my son, and his fiancée Cara, so it's a huge up on my 2 spiders for last year.
It was actually quite windy today, but we've managed to find this piece of lee, and we're sitting looking out at Bressa and the lighthouse and the big rays of sun coming down, and it is a very fine and peaceful place.
Certainly is. There are a couple of friendly sailors coming, having a look to see what we're up to as well. But no, I think the sea for me, it's been a huge influence on quite a few pieces of music I've written, especially in recent years for tattoo work for Hjalti Bunhoga. A lot of the themes has been to do with water surrounding Scotland, or indeed the water that links with other places. So it's been a huge inspiration, and I think water gives you such a feeling of freedom, and it's so peaceful that you can. I mean, at the moment it is very peaceful. There's many a day we wouldn't be able to sit here like this, but it's just listening to it kind of lapping around the stones on the beach, or indeed one of my favourite places. And had we been able to go to somewhere maybe more exotic in Shetland, my favourite place ever is Aishnes, because Aishnes can just give you I suppose my go-to place. It's a case of you can go there in a good mood and go there in a bad mood, and you always come away feeling better no matter what. But obviously, given the fact that we're trying to dodge water and all sorts of things, coming down here to Chimicol Steps here at Slits it's no a bad second when you look at what we're seeing just now. It's so very, very peaceful, very tranquil. Even watching the water, just watching how it falls off of the stones, and it's different every time, and your view is always different when you're looking at water.
And this is a part of the world, not just Shetland, but here, Toon, that is very, very well known to you, a big part of your life for a long time.
Yeah, I was born and brought up in Yale, but came to Lerwick to school, to Anderson High, for class 3 down in days. So it's when we come back. It makes me sound like I should be in a museum, and maybe I should be, but anyway. We come down for class 3, contrary to when students come new for class 5. We come down to do our O grades, more museum stuff. And it was great to just experience, I suppose, that first thing of being away from home, being away from your folk, and having to be a bit more independent, and that stood me very well for the rest of my life. And then for coming to school here, I never actually got south to do further education. I actually was asked to do fiddle tuition just after I left school. So I literally bounced from being a student to being an instructor, literally within a matter of months. To begin with, I taught in Whalsa and in Fettler, Southnaston and Vaux, but after a couple of years I got a day's work in Anderson, and then after a couple of years again I actually became almost full-time at Anderson High. So and soon school, so I mean that 2 schools was keeping me in the town. So if I wrote in the town, and then when I decided to make some huge life changes about 5 years ago, one of the first places I lived was here in Lerwick, and that was the first time I'd actually stayed here. And literally the house that I stayed in St Olave Street, at the end of St Olave Street, looks out on Slits, so that was my sea view from my front windows here in the town.
Your career as a musician, it covers an awful lot of things. How do you describe what kind of musician are you? What is it that you do, Margaret?
Goodness me. Well, I I think of myself first of all as a teacher. Firstly and foremostly, it was instruction that got me a career as a employment. So I kind of tend to think of myself as a instructor or teacher that plays, that is a performer kind of second. And then of course, I do compose. I've arranged for school groups for years and now for Hjalti Bunhoga. And then organising that band for the Tattoo, that's a huge performance stage. It's a far cry for your country halls that would have given me my first performances, playing at all kinds of concerts back in Yale way when I was just a bairn, playing at regatta concerts, for instance, kind of just variety concerts in Yale to begin with, and then ultimately more widespread through Shetland. Getting the opportunity to travel with the Shetland Fiddlers. So performance has always been there, but I do kind of tend to, if somebody said to me, what's your sort of what's the first spoke in your wheel as a musician, it would be to teach.
I think you even managed to teach my recalcitrant brother, which must surely deserve a medal.
I don't know about the medal, but we had a rather memorable trip to Ghana with Magnus in tow, where when we were on a canopy walk, he decided that jumping up and down on that would be a really good fun to see what I thought of it. Answer was I thought very little of it indeed.
Yeah, that seems about right.
Yeah, the ill-spent youth.
But because of that, you'll have had a huge effect on a really large number of Shetland bairns and folk growing up,
I suppose so. It's not really something that I didn't go into my day's work thinking about that, but I do always love when I can leave a lesson, keening that something happened in that lesson, that either bairn or young person or adult indeed is going away with more knowledge and more confidence and a better sort of outlook on their music as when they come into that lesson, albeit maybe only half an hour ago or an hour ago or whatever kind of thing. And Fox said this to me, and as I say, it's not something that I didn't get up in the morning thinking, right, what impact can I make today kind of thing. It's more a case of, right, what do I need to do for this next lesson? And it's sometimes you just do maybe need to stop and think sometimes. I tend to be very kind of forward driven and think about what's next and what's the next thing that I can do and what's the next thing that would help somebody or help band or whoever is in contact with me asking for this day and age to record something or a video recording or whatever. But maybe it's good to just pause and think sometimes what you have managed to do.
It's a good place to pause and think, I guess. God, it is the most beautiful day actually. Tell me about the role of Shetland and the landscape and the sea in your work and your writing and your life.
That's actually the whole music and the environment was the master's that I started with UHI, and eventually last year, well not last year, because last year was not busy, but 2019 became such a busy year that I did drop out of that course after just the first year. So I do have a PG cert in MA in music and the environment these days, but one of the modules there really, really did make me stop and look around about me, because I think when you live somewhere, you do tend to take it for granted. You don't actually see what's around about you. And again, there's maybe an element of when I moved away that you realise it's kind of, you don't know what you've had until it's gone kind of thing. But one of the modules that I did in that year of Masters was to literally look at your landscape, be inspired by it, take photos of it, see if you could write any haiku poetry or music based on that photography. And it was like transforming to actually take a drive and just actually, instead of the scenery just passing you by, you actually did look at it to see if you could see it in a different way. And that became hugely inspirational, and I ended up writing a suite of 5 pieces for really solo piano, accompanied by violin, just a bit of a twist on the usual violin being accompanied by piano. And it was just purely inspired for 5 photographs that I'd taken around about Shetland, and all again linked to water.
That seems like a really kind of deep seam to mine. Are you going to keep pursuing that, do you think?
It was literally just where, I suppose, the place in my life that I was at the time too, and I found it was quite therapeutic to go out and do that and just look at, as I say, just look at things differently. One photo that sticks in my mind, actually, I'd no long become a granny at that point. Pretty Jessie Cooper and Vaux, just no long been born. And one of the photos I took was just looking down the valley down towards Scalawa, and just the hills going in succession, where the nearest one was really bright and vive, and as they got further and further away, they were going, like, getting more misty. And I just thought, gosh, it's like generations, like where the near one is like the fresh one, the kind of untouched one, and the furthest away one, that could even be my late dad that's no longer with us, but is still part of that family connection. So it was really, really kind of, as I say, it was quite a therapy to sit and look at the scenery in a completely different way.
It's really beautiful. Like I feel a lot like I really feel the weight of like previous generations, sometimes in a good way, and sometimes in a kind of heavy way, like a kind of expectation and kind of where are we going, and Shetland can feel very heavy like that.
I think it can, and I think that's possibly because we are sea-locked. We don't have a neighbouring community. It's not like we can pop to our next county either to see anybody else or to go to a gig back in the days when these things actually happened. But it's not like when you're like living on the Scottish mainland. The difference there for me is that you have a much bigger level of anonymity. Nobody really cares who you are or what you're doing. So as you say, the level of expectation is zero. I mean, if I can either compose or play well or ill, and my next door neighbours is not necessarily ever going to care about it. It's still going to be the sort of musical family that I hate for growing up here and for the connections that I've made over the years that's going to actually care about that. Whereas when you're here, I suppose the notion is that, well, here's Margaret coming with a bunch of fiddlers, and the expectation is already there for you to actually come with something that's going to be good, that's going to be uplifting. So I've been lucky enough to work with amazing groups of fiddlers over the years, going back to school bands like High Strings. When you had folk like Linda Irving, Pauline Irving, Andrew Gifford, Jenna Reid, Bethany Reid, Gemma Wilson, folk like that in a band, and that's just a few of them. And apologies to those who I have not named, but there would be about 100 of you. But yeah, I mean, amazing players, and many of them that I still hate in Kelty Bunhoga. I've just been very lucky to hate really, really good clientele of players around about me. Now the sun's come out.
Yeah, but also it kind of looks like it's going to snow. It's one of those kind of days. I hear this a lot for folk that are kind of doing creative stuff, whether it's music or poetry or writing or anything else. So a lot of folk feel the need to go away for Shetland and come back and go away and come back and have that kind of that travelling motion to connect with here or to deal with here sometimes as well. Do you feel that?
I suppose it's different for me now because I've only lived away for Shetland for just barely 2 years now. So coming home it's a real treat to come home to Shetland, and I think it maybe makes me appreciate that even more as when you're here. The grass is always greener on the other side. I mean, when you live in Shetland, and having done that for all my life until 2 years ago, you always thought, what would it be like if I was living someplace else? Because you would hear of this either festivals or either that or concerts or even just get-togethers, and you think, I can't go to that because I'm here and it's too expensive to get there. There's a huge bit of, some of that was the reasons for leaving Shetland. There are a long list of reasons for leaving Shetland, but the main one really being the amount that I find myself travelling up and doing the work for the military tattoo in Edinburgh. And I just thought, I wonder what it would be like. Would I be travelling as much? Would I be spending as much in flights if I was actually on the mainland coming back to White? And that was one of the reasons for deciding that, if I didn't do it now at this stage in my life, I probably would never do it. To just go to the mainland and see what like it was living there. And certainly I would say coming back to Shetland, it's kind of like, this is the diamonds in the cupboard, it still is. This is where my roots are, it's where the roots of my music is as well. That'll never change, always will be. It's who I am, it's part of my DNA, is Shetland. And it's music and what it's gained me over the years, which is a huge amount, playing with other musicians here and really revelling in the traditional fiddle music, and certainly not least working with the young folk of the place to encourage them to do the same.
Where are you by now, South? Are you near the sea?
No, I'm actually not near the sea. But
what's that like?
I'm fond of burning, I'm fond of canal, so I'm fond of water. I live in Parliament these days, so the canal runs right through, of course, for the Falkirk Wheel and so on. It's actually, I wonder what like it would be. It's totally different, and I mean I was needing a change. The time was right for me to have a complete change. It might be looked on as a drastic change, but But yeah, I think you'll no hear Shetlander anywhere for very long until you do find water. So I wasn't there very long until I found Polmont Burn, and I was like, yes, there is a burn running right at the bottom of the park. Excellent, I can go there, and there is still water. And the sensation of water is the same, whether it be what I'm looking out on just now, the south-mouth of the harbour kind of thing here in Lerwick, or whether it be just a more gentle tinkle of water going over to where we stands in a burn. And as I say, the canal is there too, and that provides you some superb walks that you can win away for the sort of street traffic and noise, and just have complete time to yourself with your own mind, just exactly the same as I've been able to have here. I mean, where we're sitting right now, Clickham Loch is no far away, and the last piece of music I wrote for the tattoo, I good for a walk around Clickham Loch facing Olive Street and had that written in my head by the time I got home again. So it's just as a case that, yeah, I mean, this particular piece is really a piece of Shetland in here in Lerwick. It's provided me a few moments of inspiration.
Tell me about the process of that then. You go out for a walk around the loch and you come back and there's a tune in your head. How does that go?
The process when you get home is get it on the computer as fast as you can before you forget it. But it was a case that I always get a brief for the tattoo team as to what they want, what the theme of the show is going to be, what they want, and what I tend to try and do is really kind of immerse myself in some research and really kind of get locked away in my own mind about what it is they're looking for. We were once again it was sea as an inspiration, and looking back at our forebears of the Vikings and the Vikings coming here. Brigadier David Alfrey, who was the producer at the time, he says, well, you've got no trees, so what do you have on your seashore that would remind you of trees, or of indeed the colour indigo, because it was all colours of the prism we were dealing with, as well as this Viking invasion. We'd been given indigo, so I says, well, there might be like dark colours in seaweed, and I says, well, we don't have any trees to dance in the wind, but the seaweed dances in the wind because it dances totally at the behest of what the water's doing. He says, go away and write me a piece. So we ended up with a piece of music called Sea Sway to try and replicate the sway of the seaweed in the water, just as it's doing right in front of us right now. So as I say, just try and kind of look at some video, do a pretty bit of reading, and just immerse yourself in whatever it is that you're being asked to do, and then just go out for a walk and just let it all happen. And luckily that's what did happen. And I guess I get home and get this written down before it's gone.
Do you write lyrics as well, or tunes, or? It's
mostly tunes. I have one piece of poetry and two songs that sit there, but never really been brave enough as to divulge that to anybody, so they just sit in the coffers, and that's as far as they've gone.
Yeah, I have 4 poems, and I've shown them to about 2 people, which is ridiculous, but
I suppose words is much like there's the syllables, and there's still the movement in folks' voices, so there's a musicality to words. Certainly notes come much, much easier to me as words do. I mean, you can use lots of things for inspiration. I mean, I was just sitting speaking to Ross the other day, and I said, well, we were again sitting in St Olive Street, and that was part of that suite of music. Just sat one night, and it was sunset time, and I just looked at the clouds, and I thought, right, if that outline of clouds was notes, what would it sound like? And just started to write based on what the shape of the clouds was doing. So I mean, you could do that with a hill, you could do that with stones, you could do that with anything, and you will end up with a piece of music which you can down. I mean, your composition is yours, and it's some folk will lick it, and some folk will not lick it, and that's the same whether you've written a Boston two-step or something much more classical or something much more descriptive. You're not going to please everybody, but you need to get to the point where you yourself feel that you've done as much with that piece of music as you can. And a really good thing to do is to get it written, get it arranged, and then actually set it aside for a good maybe 2, 3, 4 weeks, and then go back to it and see if it still pleases you.
Just thinking about the place that we're sitting here, it's a view that you see every day. If you come into town for work or you bide here, you see it every day. But it is extraordinary, isn't it? Huge hill, Ward Bressa, cliffs over there, and the sky's always doing something in this bit. It's a good kind of panorama place to look out.
It is amazing, yeah. I mean, you had basically just across the Armoury, and you'd have the hubbub of Tesco going on, which you're never even aware of when you're sitting down here. And just, I mean, how lucky this moment is that it is as peaceful as it is, and literally just the occasional lap of that bigger wave coming in over the stones here at our feet, and it's just beautiful.
At the risk of getting too spiritual, the more that I pay attention to things like that, and like you say, like finding the blessing of it, like sitting
Yes.
here and thinking I'm really blessed to be sitting here in the peace and quiet, the more I can deal with like my impatience and all the other kind of things that bother me, because I can find such peace in the landscape.
There's nothing like just that walk out in the fresh air to clear your head, but here in Shetland, where you can be walking alongside of the sea, and even if the sea is coarse, well, there's a beauty in that's second to none, and it just makes me smile when you think of how majestic the sea can be, and like how coarse it can be, how like at the moment how gentle it is, and how within metro an hour this could be completely different, and we could be being socked by big rollers coming in. So I mean, it's an amazing thing how no matter how strong we think we are, the sea will always be more powerful.
Is there a certain tune when you're sitting here that you think about?
Well, a tune that would come to mind sitting here is, it's actually a tune for yelling for my fiddling forebears in Colleyville, which is out and in the harbour. It's a tune that I've always liked. I suppose for when I learned it first, it was a kind of more unique Shetland traditional tune in as much as it's an A major, and there's not so many Shetland tradie tunes in A major. They tend to be sat more in the middle of the instrument in D and the occasional G, and there's a few in A minor, but A major there's certainly no so many. And I think it kind of struck me as being something that was a bit quite an uplifting tune because of that, I suppose, the lift of being in that key with the three sharps and being just that bit brighter. Sitting looking where we are just now, it's the southmouth of the harbour. It certainly is out and in the harbour. It's what happens all the time. Here is the harbour being used for all kinds of shipping, and whether that be fishing or oil or tourism, God grant all that comes back someday soon to give a bit of buzz around Lerwick. And I'm sure there'll be some folk that will be enjoying the piss for the cruisers, but I think it's always fine to share that pretty bit of your own community. If it is 2 or 3 hours, we folk for other places that they can go away with some memories of where Shetland is and what it gives to society as a whole.
I guess the feeling in the sights of leaving Lerwick Harbour is one that, I mean, a lot of folk fly now, but we all are very, very familiar with going on the boat and leaving and coming in and coming back and seeing that bit of Bressa coming up.
Yeah, and there's that tune too, Leaving Lerwick Harbour. It's a tune that's been played many, many times by many folk, but again, it's a tune that you would very rarely get sick of. Let Wally Hunter composed an absolute gem of a piece of music in Leaving Lerwick Harbour as a more modern composition. When Wally died way back, we had been lucky enough with the Colleyville band to record with him just 11 days before his death, and him and Violet had recorded literally just days before that. And when that album came out, I actually just could not listen to it. I was saying, no, I cannot bring myself to listen to the track Leaving Lerwick Harbour. I had listened to the rest of the album, but made absolutely sure I did not listen to Leaving Lerwick Harbour for a number of months after I had the album. And even then, I still regret when I listened to it. I mean, there's some songs and tunes out there that a certain person, not necessarily the composer, will play or sing them, and you just think that is the definitive version of how that piece of music should be played. And that's what that track is to me. That is like, if you want to play Leaving Lerwick Harbour, get it as close to that track as you possibly can, and that's the way to do it.
That's a really interesting point, that it's not necessarily the composer. Maybe that's a particular thing with trad music or Shetland music, because a tune, if it's good, will be played by so many people and they'll make it their own. And it's not that you forget who originally wrote it, but it doesn't matter quite as much as it might in other types of music.
I think our music is it's a social music. It's music for dancing. It's music for sharing. There's nothing that pleases a musician more is to actually hear somebody else playing your composition. I mean, what more of a moment of satisfaction and tribute could you be paid? Is that somebody else thinks your tune is worthy of them having spent the time to actually learn it and play it as part of their own repertoire. I mean, that's certainly always gives me a buzz, and I'm quite sure would give anybody else that composes music a buzz. And I think that's the thing with traditional music, as I say, it's for sharing. We're putting it together. We're keeping the old tunes alive, composing new tunes with a view that as many folk will play them and hear them as possible.
Hamish Henderson, was it him? He's called it the carrying stream. So we all add to it.
Yeah, I mean, whether we like to think of it or no, when we play music, we are a tradition bearer. We're actually carrying that music forward to the next generation. And I'm sure, as a pretty lass of 7, nearly 8, I did not think that that's what I wished when I started. But I suppose a certain point in your life when you realise, hang on a minute, folk are really asking me for quite detailed information about tunes here, which if I gained that information means I must have turned into that tradition bearer, that person that has that knowledge that you can pass on. And we would never ken it all. It wouldn't matter like how hard you study music, and I suppose that's either the frustrating or the beautiful bit about it is that you'll never ken it all. You can sit and study, even taking it down to traditional music. There's always going to be something out there, a recording, a version, a story that you've no picked up on or no heard. So it's an amazing sort of science to get into that really never ends.
Mm-hmm. Do you feel like the last year notwithstanding, because that's been just hard for any kind of collective musical endeavour, is it in a healthy state, tradition, folk music and all these kind of things?
I think music can always be in a healthier state. One of the things that would be a slight soapbox moment coming up, slight bugbear for me is when folk listen to one track or one bairn playing a tune really well and they say, we're traditions in safe hands. Well, that particular tune on that occasion was in very safe hands, but when you look at the wider picture, there's always so much more that could be done. I mean, tuition is still in schools in Shetland, very, very fortunately, but it's not to the level that it used to be. And I think as an island that is absolutely fiddle music is indigenous to it, it's one of the things you think of when you think of Shetland. And that's not just me as a fiddle player. I mean, you think of your fair isle, your macking, you think of your fishing, but you think of your fiddle playing as well. And I think that always needs to be absolutely nurtured and treasured in a community where it is such a strong part of who we are. It's part of our identity as a Shetlander, is for fiddle music. I don't know how far it would need to go for me to think that there was enough being done to treasure it and care for it and to wrap it up the way that it needs to be done here. And I mean, where traditional music is known in ill hands, don't take me wrong, there's an awful lot of good music coming out of the islands and an awful lot of incredibly talented young folk. But it's the standard that we're producing now as a broader, wider thing. I don't know that I would get the same level of work out of a bunch of, say, 15, 16-year-olds as I was able to do with 24 of them in high strings many years ago. And I say that's not intended to sound like I think that 15, 16-year-olds in Shetland at the moment can't play. There's an immense amount of amazing players, but we had an awful lot more back sort of 30 years ago.
Yeah, that's kind of the culture, the wider thing. It's a harder thing to fix as well.
It's a hard thing to fix. It takes a long time to grow a tree, but it takes no time to cut them down. And once it is cut down, it takes an awful long time to grow the branches back again. And I think that some of the cuts that we've seen in education, and the other side to that is that it's made for there being a sort of private market here in Shetland that really didn't exist before, because it quite honestly didn't need to. But that means that it's more diluted, there's more teachers working, so there's less cohesion to be able to put together groups like I was lucky enough and able to do. Nothing stays the same. I mean, I'm no that and a dinosaur that I didn't realise that's the case. Nothing stays the same, and there's an awful lot more pressures on young folk as years go by, and none more so. It's just new when everybody is glued to the face of a screen trying to do their homeschooling as well as everything else. It's an incredible pressure on young folk that they've got to do that as well as not go anywhere. We never had that in our lifetime. It was I mean, when you look back at our childhood, crikey, we just had the life of Riley compared to what bairns are going through just now. But with any luck, it'll no be long lived. This will be something that they will look back on, and when they're my age and a granny, they'll look back and they'll go, well, what did you do during COVID? Did you learn any tunes? Did you go to any sessions online? Did you do anything? Because I mean, online is now the way forward for musicians for some time to come. Mm-hmm. As sad as it is, but one day it'll come back. It might not. It might take a while for it to reach the sort of whirlwind that it was in. But I hope that in time, the confidence of the public and the confidence of musicians will come back, that we can actually do that again.
We have to look for the light at the end of the tunnel and assume it's not a train.
Absolutely.
And just be very glad that despite COVID we can sit here and look at the sun falling over Bressa and the snow on the top of the hills there, and sit here on this fine day, enjoy it.
No, I think no matter what's going on, it's never all bad. I mean, 2020 was certainly a year like no other in living memory, and lots of folk have had like really horrific times during that 12 months, and it's still ongoing. But some folk have had some really uplifting news. We've been very fortunate to hear that in our family, the announcement of another grandbaby coming and Ross and Cara's engagement, and it's just there's been some really lovely things to give you a lift. Notwithstanding that you can have that grumpy day when you wonder if it's ever going to end, but that days come and go just like the good days. And anything through life that we have, good times finish, but so do bad times. Bad times go by as well, if you just give them the time.
When I was asking you about the tune, I was going to suggest you play it, and then I forgot. Do you think you could? Or is it too cold?
See if the fingers can still function.
Given the temperature and the weather, you've managed to finish. Is it a carbon fibre?
It's carbon fibre, yeah. We had Americans join us on the tattoo last year, and all three of them had carbon fibre fiddles, and I was like, let me see what you've got here.
They're kind of indestructible then.
Pretty much bulletproof compared to our wooden fiddles. I mean, they can get rained on, they can withstand the temperature, which is a good job given where we're at just now. Yeah, they'll still take a pretty bit of damage on the bridge and on the hair of the bow. That would still take damage, but compared to our wooden ones where you're having splits and cracks and all sorts of things developing. And I'm sure if Ewan Thompson is listening, he would just be having a nightmare at this point in time at the idea of me playing outside today. But
sorry, Ewan.
I promise you, it is on a carbon fibre. It's not on my wooden one. You will not be seeing my wooden fiddle in my workshop over the next few days owing to this performance. They're still maybe not absolutely 100%, but they're
wow, I've never seen anything like that.
It's a solid composite piece. So unlike wooden instruments that are glued together, and there's lots of different parts, this is effectively just one composite lump, one composite piece. Mm-hmm. And there's still a bridge, so that can still take damage, and obviously your bow still has hair. That can still get wet, and when it gets wet it's got no grip and it's got no sound, so that's when it gets rather interesting. But we always brought two instruments with us, two wooden instruments, which were good instrument when the weather was allowing, and a pretty so much more kind of factory fiddle for when the weather was not so nice, or if indeed when it was raining. See if my fingers can hold it in this temperature, but we'll have a go. Anybody walking by will think the trousers out, they can hear this fiddle music coming from hand to deck.
I think there should be more folks just sitting about playing the fiddle. It's lovely.
As you go,
yeah. I hope you enjoyed this episode of Lie of the Land. My thanks to guests Roseanne Watt and Margaret Robertson for showing me the places that they love. We'll be back later on this year. Thanks for listening.
Of health boards, to hear from them the steps they have taken to make sure that the overall pace is accelerating in the wider community, but that is a consistent performance.